My husband is organizing my 36th birthday party to introduce me to his 23-year-old pregnant girlfriend, who is my replacement because I'm defective. But he panics when the truth about her is discovered. My husband Cole and I have been married for 8 years. It all started when I was 28. I was a personal assistant dealing with the loss of my father. Losing a parent leaves you feeling incredibly isolated and empty, as anyone who has gone through it knows. I was in a very difficult emotional situation, and then Cole appeared, this charming older man who seemed to know exactly what to say to lift my spirits. We had a cliché love story at the beginning, and maybe that's why I fell head over heels for him. At that time, he was everything I was looking for, confident, reliable, and caring. We used to have amazing dates, and he always treated me like a real lady. My mom loved him from the start. When I met his parents, there was some initial tension because we came from different ethnic backgrounds, but over time, they really grew fond of me. His sister Kylie and I got along really well from the beginning and have become incredibly close. We talk regularly and often go shopping or have lunch together. Kylie feels like the sister I always wanted but never had. She and I share everything, and sometimes I feel incredibly grateful that, thanks to my husband, I have her in my life. Cole and I were still deeply in our honeymoon phase when he spontaneously decided to propose. He completely surprised me with an engagement party, inviting all our loved ones. Without much hesitation, I said yes. I can still vividly remember the smiles on our family's faces as they kept praising how Cole and I were made for each other. I admit that for a long time, I wholeheartedly believed that too. Our wedding went smoothly, and for our honeymoon, we spent 2 weeks in Mexico. It was only when we returned home that reality hit us hard. Moving into his place became a challenge because he was very particular about his belongings and didn't want me to change anything in his living room or bedroom by adding my own touch. I tried to negotiate, suggesting that I could slowly incorporate my style throughout the house so that he could get used to it. However, he then had an issue with the size of my wardrobe, claiming that no one in their right mind needs that many clothes. Although I'm certainly not a fashion influencer, like any other woman, I had a collection of clothes that I didn't want to part with. He insisted that I needed to minimize my wardrobe as much as possible since he didn't want me taking up half of the closet space. Understanding his concerns, I agreed that I didn't want him to feel cramped in his own space. Instead of keeping my clothes in our bedroom, I decided to use the guest room for my wardrobe. Then, he had an issue with my fridge magnets. Ever since I was a child, I've dreamed of exploring new places, so when I finally got a job, I set out to save and travel as much as possible. One of my little traditions was collecting fridge magnets from each new destination I visited, and proudly displaying them on my fridge as mementos of my adventures. However, Cole always found them cheesy and cheap-looking. He flatly refused to allow any of my magnets on our fridge. We had some heated arguments about it, but he finally urged me not to start our marriage off on the wrong foot, so I agreed to give them up. During the first 2 years of our marriage, I spent a lot of time with my family and friends. Cole, on the other hand, was more of a homebody, especially because he worked long hours and often felt exhausted. I enjoyed having a social life and going out with my friends, so I didn't mind going out alone sometimes. He would suggest that I stay home, but we still made time for date nights twice a week, which I greatly valued. Most nights, I preferred spending time with him, but occasionally I liked meeting up with other people too. Similarly, he had his own interests, like spending time with his golf buddies on Sundays, and I never had a problem with that. However, in the 3rd year of our marriage, I noticed a change in Cole's behavior. When we got married, it was pretty clear that we didn't want to have kids, but suddenly, Cole started telling me he wanted to be a father and how he would love to have a baby with me. This took me by surprise, and I mentioned how we had both decided not to have kids, but Cole brushed it off, saying he wanted to see me with a pregnant belly. His words made me feel extremely uncomfortable. On multiple occasions, he insisted on not using a condom, which made me even more fearful that he was trying to force me into pregnancy. I had several conversations with him, trying to understand why he suddenly wanted to be a father when, up until last year, he had been saying he loved that we didn't have the added responsibilities of having kids. Cole kept insisting that once I was pregnant and could quit my job, everything in our marriage would be perfect. The thought of losing my job terrified me. I know many of you may not agree with this, but I decided to start taking birth control pills after making an appointment with my gynecologist. Thankfully, it worked, and I never got pregnant. Meanwhile, Cole's behavior continued to become more erratic. He even started questioning me about who I was meeting and where we were going. Whenever I wanted to spend time with my friends, he would comment on the type of clothes I wore, which surprised me because I had always been modest in my clothing choices. He suggested that I should cover up more, even if I was wearing a normal t-shirt with a jacket, saying how he worried about what other guys might think when they saw me. At first, I just ignored it, but then he became more aggressive, insisting more and more that I change into a different outfit before going out. It made me feel uncomfortable and insecure about what was happening in our relationship. A few weeks later, I started noticing that some of my favorite clothes were missing from my closet. Initially, I thought I was going crazy and searched the house looking for them. When I asked Cole about it, he said he had no idea. However, while rummaging through the garage, I found my clothes stuffed into an empty shoebox. I was furious and confronted him about it. At first, he denied knowing anything about it, but I pointed out that it was just the two of us in the house, so this time he couldn't avoid responsibility. After some arguments, he finally admitted that he had hidden my clothes to prevent me from wearing them when I went out with my friends. I was horrified and furious. He continued justifying his actions, saying he was only trying to save my reputation since girls who dressed like that were often labeled as sluts or easy by guys. I lost my patience and yelled at him that he had gone crazy and had no right to dictate what I could or couldn't wear. I pointed out that I'd been married to him for 3 years and had never been unfaithful. Why did he care so much about what other men thought? I made it clear that no reasonable person would behave so controlling toward their partner. In the end, he apologized, and since this was the first strange thing he had done to me, I thought maybe he was just going through a phase or something, so I let it go. However, everything kept getting worse. I started noticing that messages from my friends and family were mysteriously disappearing from my phone. For example, if I had a conversation with my mom and we made plans to meet up, I couldn't find any trace of our conversations a couple of days later. It left me completely baffled. At first, I thought it might be a glitch in my phone, so I updated it to fix any potential issues. Then, one of my friends called me to inform me about a small party she was planning at her house with close friends and asked if I was available. She mentioned she would send me the party invitations soon. However, I never received them on my phone. When she called me later to ask why I hadn't responded, I explained that I had never received any messages from her after our conversation. It wasn't until I attended her party that weekend that she showed me how she had indeed sent the invitation, which I had never received. Everything was very strange and unsettling. I started suspecting that my phone had been hacked, so I decided to buy a new phone for myself. I'm an emotional hoarder, so I didn't want to sell my old phone just in case I could fix it in the future. During all this time, I had been sharing these strange incidents with my husband Cole, and he seemed as puzzled as I was. However, the day I brought home my new phone, I didn't think to mention it to him. That night, I woke up feeling really thirsty and got up to get some water. When I entered the living room, I was startled to see my husband crouched on the couch, holding both phones in his hands. It took a moment for my eyes to adjust, but once they did, I could see that he was going through my phone. I couldn't contain my surprise and frustration. I loudly asked him what the hell he was doing. He jumped, clearly startled by my sudden appearance. He started stammering about how clearly I was cheating since I had bought another phone without telling him. He ranted about how he should never have trusted me, while I stood there in shock, trying to grasp what was happening in the middle of the night. I calmly explained to him that he already knew about the issues I had been having with my old phone, and that I had just bought the new phone, which I hadn't even set up yet. I told him he could have simply waited for me to mention it the next day. I asked him again what he was doing with both phones in his hands in the middle of the night, and he sheepishly tried to tell me he was just checking to see if there were any issues with my phone. I snatched my phone out of his hands and noticed he had opened my chats on the old phone. A realization hit me like lightning. It was Cole who had been deleting my messages, which is why I wasn't receiving invitations from my friends or family. Meanwhile, he kept insisting that he couldn't sleep and had come out to watch some TV when he stumbled upon my new phone near my nightstand and started snooping around. He claimed he was also checking my old phone to see if he could find any faults I might have overlooked. I stared at him blankly and asked him directly if he had been deleting my messages from the phone. Upon hearing this, Cole became agitated and vehemently denied it, telling me it was absurd to even ask him something like that. He insisted he would never do something like that. However, despite his denial, I couldn't shake the unsettling feeling that something was very wrong. I pointed out that he was clearly going through my messages in the middle of the night, so he had no grounds to deny it. I couldn't comprehend why on earth he would do something like that. I told him that because he was deleting my messages, I couldn't meet up with my friends or family. It felt like a betrayal on multiple levels, and I couldn't understand why he would sabotage my relationships with my loved ones in such a sneaky way. I couldn't even look him in the eyes. I felt utterly disgusted and decided to trust my instincts. I told him he had crossed the line this time and that I needed some space. I started packing my bags, intending to go live with my mom for a while. He begged me not to leave, finally admitting that he had been deleting my messages just so he could spend more time with me. I couldn't understand how he could justify such a violation of privacy, especially when I already spent a lot of time with him. Later, when I confided in my mother, she agreed that what he had done was really strange. However, she also mentioned that I was lucky to have a husband who still loved me so much after all these years, even if his actions were wrong. My husband kept calling me like crazy and constantly sending me messages. His texts ranged from apologies to blaming me for making him think I was cheating. Over the next few days, I kept my phone turned off and tried to distract myself by helping my mom around the house. I don't know why, but on one hand, I knew something was wrong with Cole, but on the other hand, I didn't know what to do about it. It was like I was too dense to admit the truth, even to myself. Fortunately, Kylie came over to comfort me. She was as disturbed as I was when she heard about what her brother had been doing to me. I know many of you might think that she would obviously support her brother because they're blood related, but Kylie is totally my friend. She assured me that what I was feeling was completely normal because no husband should wake up in the middle of the night to check his wife's phone and react like Cole did, especially when I had never done anything to make him so suspicious. She agreed that something was going on and promised to investigate by talking to him. I felt much better after talking to her and was hopeful that she could make Cole see some sense. I turned my phone on after talking to Kylie because I felt much better. However, I received a flood of angry text messages from Cole. He sounded like a different person, and in some of his messages, he even threatened to divorce me and leave me with nothing, just like my dad had left me. I simply couldn't understand what I had done to make him so angry. I also noticed there were no new messages that day, so I assumed he might have realized his mistake and felt remorseful. I hoped he would eventually call me, and we could work things out. However, 2 days later, Kylie called me to tell me that she had some news, and I might not like it. When she arrived, she looked furious and showed me photos on her phone taken outside Cole's place. In the photos, a young blonde woman was entering our house. I couldn't understand what it meant. That's when Kylie told me that Cole had been cheating on me. I felt like all the air had been knocked out of my lungs. I just shook my head as Kylie went on to tell me she had been watching this girl for the past 2 days, coming and going from Cole's place, and suspected her brother was having an affair. My whole body trembled, and I felt sick to my stomach. Kylie tried to hug me, but I pushed her away and ran to the bathroom. The world around me was spinning, and I could feel a deep pain in my head. I kept thinking this just couldn't be true and that maybe there was a simpler explanation for this. I came out of the bathroom and Kylie had a worried expression on her face. My mom, whom Kylie had filled in about what my husband had done, looked at me with an angry expression. I tried to downplay the situation and tell them that it was probably a housekeeper or one of Cole's coworkers. But the more I tried to explain why a young woman like that would be meeting with my husband while he and I were in the middle of a fight, the more I could see Kylie and my mom looking at me with compassionate expressions that almost made me feel sick. My mom gently sat me down, but I kept staring at the floor. Kylie told me how she also wanted to believe her brother wasn't being unfaithful, but the evidence suggested otherwise. She then asked if Cole had contacted me in the past 2 days. I shook my head. She remained silent, and what followed next was a lot of crying on my part. I can't even begin to describe the incredible sadness that comes when you know your marriage is over. I will say that Kylie and Mom sat with me on the floor, comforting me in their own way. When I started feeling a little better, my mom told me she was sorry for ever thinking my cowardly husband could change and that she was going to help me find a divorce lawyer. Kylie agreed and told me that she was going to do some more digging on this mysterious woman, which could potentially help me in my divorce. I didn't do much more than nod. I just wanted to sleep, so they left me to curl up in bed and pretend that this was all just one big nightmare. However, like anyone who has been cheated on, I woke up with a pain in my chest and the realization that the love of my life had betrayed me. Kylie had sent me those photos of the woman entering our house, so I zoomed in as much as I could to notice how young she looked. I couldn't believe that my pathetic husband, instead of talking to me like a sane person, had decided to hook up with some random girl, which made me even angrier. If my husband thought he could do whatever he wanted and that I would just come crawling back to him, then he was in for a big surprise. I was going to file for divorce and take everything he ever owned. I spoke to my mom, and we started researching good divorce lawyers in the area so we could schedule appointments with them. Kylie called me whenever she could to check on me. When I finished talking to the divorce lawyer, the first thing my lawyer informed me was that we needed to hire a private investigator to gather as much evidence as possible, which would ensure that I got the maximum in my divorce. Hiring a private investigator was expensive, but I didn't care as long as Cole learned the lesson not to mess with me. During this time, Cole only texted me twice, and both times, he asked if I was ready to apologize to him. The messages only made me angrier, and there were many things I wanted to say, but I also knew that saying those things would alert him to the divorce. I wanted to see his face when I handed him the divorce papers. Cole never bothered to show up at my mom's house because In his mind, he still believed that his reaction about my phones was completely justified. Meanwhile, my lawyer informed me that the private investigator was gathering a lot of solid evidence, and that Cole's relationship with this young woman seemed serious, as they met literally every day. This led us to believe that she wasn't just a casual fling, and that they might have been having an affair for a long time. Kylie also found out, after hours of research online, that this young woman's name was Georgina, and she was only 23 years old. The most shocking part was that this woman had a criminal record and was wanted in another state because she had been involved in car thefts when she was younger while working for a gang. This meant that my husband had been having an affair with a possible criminal, which was incredibly disturbing to discover. Georgina was currently working as a stripper, so she must have lied about her past to everyone. Kylie and I talked, and we both agreed that this was a serious matter that Cole needed to know about. We decided to have a secret meeting with my father-in-law without Cole knowing, where I told them everything that had been happening. At first, Cole's parents, who didn't even know we were having marital problems, were shocked to hear this. They told me how Cole had been lying to them for weeks, telling them that everything was fine at home. Kylie also showed them photos of Georgina and more evidence gathered by the private investigator. Cole's parents were furious that their own son could do something so despicable. Cole's mom hugged me and assured me that they were on my side, and that they were absolutely disgusted that their son had decided to have an affair with a criminal stripper. We all came up with a plan to catch him red-handed, where his parents would intervene, and I could hand him the divorce papers. My birthday was coming up in a few days, so his parents took charge and called Cole at that time to insist that he should throw a big celebration for me, his wife, this year, so we could all celebrate together. Cole tried to find a way out by casually saying that I probably wouldn't like a big celebration, hoping his parents wouldn't find out what was really going on in our marriage. But his dad insisted, saying that he had already spoken to me, and that I had said I would absolutely love it. Cole seemed surprised when his dad mentioned this, but eventually, he agreed to his parents' demand to throw a birthday party for me. Throughout all of this, he didn't mention once that I no longer lived with him at this point, or that he was involved with another woman. Later, Cole called me, or at least gave me several missed calls because I refused to answer. Then he texted me, saying that he would love to throw me a birthday party and hoped that I could overlook what had happened and attend for his parents' sake. I responded, pretending like this wasn't the plan from the beginning, and told him how considerate it was of him to do this and that I would gladly attend. On the day of my birthday, I had my divorce papers along with photos from my private investigator, ready in case Cole denied his affair. When my mom and I arrived at Cole's house, he didn't even bother to hug me and just gave my mom and me a dry smile. We went inside to see that the man hadn't done anything to decorate the house for the night's celebration of my birthday. It looked like a frat house with gray balloons randomly hung around the living room, and the living room itself looked extremely dirty. I walked into the kitchen and saw a pile of dirty dishes. Cole had brought takeout pizza for the night, which almost made me laugh. When his parents arrived, Cole helped them settle in. Everyone acted like we didn't know anything, waiting for the right moment to confront Cole. When Kylie arrived, she brought gifts for me, and then we all sat down for dinner, making small talk here and there. We cut my birthday cake, and everyone congratulated me on turning 36. That's when the doorbell rang, and Cole rushed to open it. To everyone's surprise, he came in holding hands with Georgina, who was wearing a sparkly dress and high heels. Cole completely ignored me and went to his parents, introducing Georgina and saying how he had wanted to announce something for a long time and thought this would be the perfect opportunity to do so. Cole began loudly saying how he was the only one unhappy in our marriage, as I had emotionally abused him and never considered his feelings. He accused me of manipulating him and being a bad wife. He went on to say how he had recently discovered that I had cheated on him when he caught me with another phone, and after confronting me about it, I had abandoned him. He paused for dramatic effect and continued saying that if it weren't for Georgina, he wouldn't have survived the last few months of our failed marriage. He announced that since I left, he and Georgina had been spending more and more time together and had recently discovered that she was even 2 months pregnant. My eyes widened in shock as this was new information I wasn't ready to hear. I turned to look at Kylie, and she was also in shock, her mouth wide open. Cole went on to say how I had failed as a woman by not being a good wife to him during our marriage. However, he was lucky to have found Georgina and hoped his parents would be able to accept her. My mother, who had clearly been trying to contain her anger until this moment, finally let her intrusive thoughts win. She stood up from her chair and threw a whole glass of soda in Cole's face, shouting how despicable he was. Cole seemed shocked, while Georgina looked terrified. Then Kylie shouted at Cole that his game was over and that we all knew he had been having an affair with this woman. She went on to tell him everything she had discovered about Georgina, including the fact that she was wanted in another state for car theft. I can't describe how satisfying it was to see my husband lose all the color from his face and start panicking. I knew then that this was the perfect opportunity to serve him the divorce papers. I took the papers out of my coat and walked around the table to triumphantly hand them to him. I told him I was ready, and now that he had publicly admitted to having an affair, I was going after everything he owned. My mother and I excused ourselves while we watched his parents, and Kylie continued to yell at him. I was done with him and his drama, and I had no intention of staying there any longer. During the entire car ride, my mom kept telling me how proud she was to have raised a strong woman like me. I have no idea what Kylie and his parents told him, but it must have been bad because he kept calling and texting me, begging me to talk. I woke up this morning to nearly 80 messages from Cole, pleading for me to come back to him and promising that he was going to change. He says he's ready to go to couples therapy, and that if I really loved him, I shouldn't give up so easily. If you had asked me last year if I would ever divorce Cole, my answer would have been no. However, things have changed, and I know I'm on the right path now. Update 1. Wow, when I posted this, I didn't expect so many people to comment. For starters, for those saying I should block him, I can't, as my lawyer has advised me to keep all channels of communication open until the divorce is finalized. Many of you have also pointed out how Cole keeps lying and that he must have been having an affair with this girl, Georgina, or another woman for a long time, which is why he became so controlling and possessive in our relationship, and I quite agree with that. However, I have no interest in discovering the truth because, regardless of whether it's true or not, I just want this chapter of my life to end. Update 2. It's been a few months since my last update, and for those asking, I got tested for STDs, and I'm happy to report that I'm clean, so at least I avoided that crisis. Now, as for my divorce, it's still dragging on. Cole's lawyer keeps finding excuses to delay it as much as possible, which is extremely frustrating, but my lawyer and I are determined not to give up. Cole's lawyer doesn't want me to claim anything from Cole, but I paid for all the renovations around the house during the 3 years I was married to him. I painted and fixed up his basement so he could have his man cave. I paid half of his car loan, and I was the one who did the grocery shopping every week, so I deserve my share, and I will make sure I get it. Kylie and Cole's parents have continued to stay in touch with me. I met with Kylie last month when she gave me the happy news that she's engaged. She's getting married in the next few months and has already invited me to attend. I don't know if I should go because I don't want to run into Cole, but she's insisted that she wants me there to support her on her big day. Kylie also informed me that Cole and Georgina have broken up. Apparently, after that big scandal on my birthday, Georgina told him that she had, in fact, been sleeping with several men. So there was no guarantee that she was pregnant with his child. She left after that with another man, who knows where, maybe scared we would call the police. Cole has been devastated ever since and has been blaming me. But his parents have given him another good scolding and reminded him that it was all his fault. Honestly, I don't care about his feelings or his breakup, and hopefully in my next update, I'll be able to share happier news. I'm planning to talk to Cole's parents, and hopefully they can help me find a way for Cole to finalize the divorce as soon as possible, so I can move on from all of this. Update 3. Okay guys, I did it. I'm divorced. I can't believe I'm finally free. Cole and his lawyer did everything they could to keep dragging out our case, but the judge had simply had enough. In the end, Cole agreed to give me everything I asked for. It turns out that Cole's parents had another conversation with him and threatened to disinherit him if he didn't finally divorce me and put an end to these months and months of silly fights. I'm so happy, and tonight, I'm finally planning to go out with my friends and have a blast. I've also invited Kylie, so we're ready for some good times. Update 4. I'm coming back a few hours later because something happened on my night out with my friends and Kylie, Cole's sister. Basically, her brother followed her to the place because he wanted to find out if I was already seeing another man. It was crazy because I saw him come in, and when he saw me talking to a friend, he exploded in fury at me, saying that I had been cheating on him. But the truth is, he's just a friend, and we weren't even in a compromising situation or anything. Even Kylie can attest to that. Plus, we're already divorced, and if I wanted to date this guy or anyone else, I have every right to. But it's just his controlling nature, the same man who cheated on me with a woman who left him high and dry projecting onto me. After that, Kylie took him away because he was making a whole scene at the place, and honestly, it was very embarrassing. I haven't talked to Kylie since then, but I'm already home after the night ended, although it was overshadowed by my ex. I definitely plan to file a restraining order or something, and I'm even planning to install cameras at home because it's getting creepy. Update 5. A few days have passed since the incident, and this morning I met with my lawyer to file the restraining order. He said there wouldn't be any issues, as there are several witnesses, including his sister Kylie. I spoke to her the day after the incident, and she updated me a bit on her brother's situation. Apparently, and as was likely, his new girlfriend's baby wasn't his after all. She also told him that he missed me and hated losing me. But Kylie made it very clear to him to stop bothering me, or else she and their parents would also cut him out of their lives. Let's hope that with this, along with the restraining order, it'll be enough to finally get this man to leave me alone once and for all.